Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to Soul Symphony. Thank you for tuning in. And my name is Z. So today I will talk about something, a topic that is slightly different than what I talk about usually. Today I will go ahead and tell you my life story. What actually pushed me to go into healing to begin with. Okay. So I will try to make this two parts, just to make sure that the length is not exceeding what YouTube is actually allowing, and also just to make sure that you're not overwhelmed listening to one long part. Okay. So my journey started. I would say my healing journey started. I was probably 5 6 years old. I can barely remember much of my childhood besides just trauma, which usually that's what they say actually, that the trauma that you sustain is more likely to linger, and you more likely to remember that as an adult than actually any time or any good time that you have had, which obviously most people who go through trauma in childhood have not had good time to begin with, have not had a decent childhood or a regular childhood for them to even remember that. But any good parts of our childhood, when we go through trauma, it's kind of it's eclipsed by all the trauma, because the trauma is there to linger. The trauma is there to actually change our perspective of life, change our nervous system, how we react to things, how we perceive life in general, how we perceive people. And most people, unfortunately, when they go through trauma beginning in childhood, we there is this perspective of negativity, that life is just negative, that because that's all we had in childhood, so therefore we have not had anything to model or anything to show us that actually there's better, there's positivity, there is optimism, there's faith, so none of those things are there. Therefore we grow up with that mindset, that limiting mindset, that unfortunately becomes one of our biggest enemy as adults, because it stays and it lingers and it keeps us from actually expanding and becoming the best version the best version of ourselves. So my childhood, again, it started around my trauma started around 5 6 years old. I don't remember much about really my childhood again besides the trauma. My parents, they were divorced by the time I was 5. They were not together. So I grew up with a stepmother, and I had siblings, of course, and she had one child, and I had older siblings with my, we have the same mother and same father, of course. And then so I'm 6 years older than my step. I will not call him a step brother, but half brother, I'll say. So we grew up in the same household, but at early age, I could see, actually, he was just a baby. I was around 6. So I could see the difference. Like the way we were treated was different, 100% different. Like if we were like the maid, like we were, just some foster care children, and which even if you're a care child, you should not be treated in a certain way. And the biggest things I remember really is the love, for sure. The affection, love was not giving, and the presence. Nobody was there to ask us, "Hey, how are you feeling today? How was school? What did you do today?" So at early age, I got to understand that. Um, Unfortunately, if you are not there for yourself, nobody will be there for you. So you have to learn to be there for yourself. So that's one of the biggest thing for me. My biggest lesson in childhood was, if you fell down and you have like you scrape your knee or something, if you don't go and get your own band-aid and alcohol and clean it up for yourself and put the band-aid on and cry and then soothe yourself, nobody will be doing it for you. So that's a sad thing for a child, because that is something that unfortunately teaches you to be hyper independent, and no child should be the one being their own parent, right? And my father was present, but again, he was not, unfortunately, as present because he was he worked a lot. He worked a lot. He had a lot of responsibility. He was the head of his company, so he had a lot of like responsibilities. So he was not really a lot was going on in the household, and he was not aware of. And again, culturally, we're my culture, what children say usually doesn't really matter. Even if you say, "Hey, I'm being abused" or "I'm being treated in a certain way," usually the adult has so much more. What they say is so much more important. What they say is so much more has so much more weight. And the child is now most of the time what you say as a child is not really. It's more like, "Go ahead and sit down." That's kind of the response that you receive as a child. So therefore, even when we were being abused, right? My siblings and I, we were being abused physically, mentally, emotionally, neglected, when it comes to just basic survival, like food, water, stuff like that, like shoes to go to school, clothes. And we were not being taken care of, and we couldn't really go and tell our dad because he will leave the house by 6 7 o'clock. He's gone, and he will not be back until like 8 9 o'clock at night. So therefore, it's like he was not seeing us going to school with barely shoes on, or he would not really see us, going to school or sleeping, without really being fed, or he would not see none of that stuff. And again, it was more like, "I'm going to treat you how I'm going to treat you, and even if you go and say something about it, no one will believe you," right? So we learned to just keep it to ourselves. Or we had actually aunties and uncles that would come and visit occasionally. They kind of knew about what was going on, but not really the full extent of things. So they would come sometimes, they would bring us gifts, and they would give us like money for school lunch and stuff like that. And they would be like, "Just hide it. Don't tell no one that, I have given you this. Just hide it." And so they knew that something was going on. Again, if you're not present, you would not know. And we had a dog. She was a sweetheart, German Shepherd, and she died. She was 13 years old. I cried so hard the day she died. And for a long time, actually, I missed her. But she was actually she could feel things that were going on, and that's just how sad it was. And I would say she was one of our biggest our biggest escape, I guess, right? Our biggest escape was actually that dog. And so we used to play with her, and she actually had even a better life than us. That's just the sad part. She had a better life than us. And again, we were not we were middle class, we were not poor. But again, money sometimes is not necessarily what determines if a child is neglected, abused physically, mentally, emotionally, and all the different abuse, that a child can go through. Their the status of the family or parents, something have nothing to do with it. It's just, unfortunately, toxic environments is toxic. That's all it is. It has nothing to do with the social status. It has something to do with how people who are hurt, who have went through trauma, who have not healed, unfortunately perpetrate that same trauma for one reason or another. Some people just feel that, "Hey, I've been through it. Why they cannot go through it? I've been through it. So therefore, I'll go ahead and just let them also feel some of it. Some of that pain I'm going through, I need to make sure that actually I pass it along. I move it, I move that pain forward. I give it forward." And that's not the right thing to do, but people do it. Unfortunately, people do it. And so one occasion specifically that I still remember, I actually talked to my brother about it not very long ago. Because again, as I'm going through my healing journey, I realized there are still so many things that, in order for you to actually be sane, to stay in a sane mental state growing up after going through so much abuse, one thing for sure, that your body, a type of mechanism, a type of protective mechanism that your mind has to adapt to, is to learn to actually bury certain memories. So there's certain memories stay buried. You do not even remember. So certain a whole an entire interval, an entire chunk of your childhood, you don't remember until you start really introspectively going in and start thinking about why certain things are happening, why you behaving certain way, why certain things are not resolved when it comes to emotional regulation, why when it comes to how we react to certain things in life, how we address certain things in life, right? And when we go and start introspectively doing the work and start thinking all the way back to childhood, that's when certain memories kind of populate. They kind of like just pop out from where they were hidden. So that's literally what happened to me not very long ago. Like I was saying, maybe 3 4 weeks ago, right? I was talking to my brother about just past things. We never really talk about our childhood. We don't. We talk mostly about things, I would say maybe high school and up. We don't talk about anything when it comes to like young childhood stuff. We don't, because there's no good things that we have to talk about. None. And because if there's none. So I was talking to him about we were just talking about a nickname that was given to him when we were growing up. And so there was a TV show. There was a TV show that we used to watch, and we were not allowed to watch TV too, and only Saturdays. And Saturday maybe an hour. And then there's also like some musical series that used to come Saturday afternoon that used to play on TV, and then we'll watch that. And cartoon, not really. It was a lot of things as a child that we actually did not have. Not that we couldn't afford it. It's more like, no, you're gonna get punished. Anything that's childhood related, oh, toys, oh, no, you're not getting toys. Oh, this, oh, you're not getting this. But then our older sibling, which we have the same, parent, that we have our half brother, he got everything. So that's kind of what showed us, unfortunately, you that it's not that our stepmother did not know how to be nice or how to provide a nurturing environment for us. It's just that she decided that we were not going to be the ones benefiting from it. She would not put effort into us to give us that, because our half sibling, he was having all those things. And sometimes it was on purpose to show us, look, you are not the same. Don't even think that you're the same. You're not the same. So therefore, sit right there in the corner in your lane and don't worry about what's going on here, because this child right here is getting whatever he's getting, and you right there, you getting nothing. So just sit right there. And so we learned between the four of us to just help each other, and to be our support system, to be and until today as adults, we literally our support system. And if there's every now and then, of course, we'll fight, something will happen, we'll stop talking to each other for 2 3 days. But then there's always that one or two people that will be the devil's advocate and try to check on and try to come and talk to us like, you guys need to go back and talking to each other, man. You guys are ridiculous. Just go back and make up. And so it happens, unfortunately. But we do understand and realize that, unfortunately, even though that situation was some of the hardest things that we have been through in life, and not by choice, by somebody else's choice, by somebody else imposing this on us, who did not have to, but they decided to choose exactly to do those things to us. Not that they didn't know better, but they did it anyway to do those things to us. One specific incident that I remember, I was 6, maybe 7. I would say maybe 7. My sister was a teenager at that time. She liked this boy who's in the neighborhood, and she snuck out. She snuck out at night to go talk to him, and we were sleeping. I would say maybe so. I shared a room with her, and but I didn't even pay attention that she was gone. I was just sleeping. So she snuck out to go talk to him. Maybe 2 o'clock in the morning, maybe 2, 3 o'clock, maybe one. I don't know, 2, 3 o'clock. It was past midnight for sure. Past midnight, past 1 o'clock for sure. And then I we hear screamings. We hear like yelling and screaming. So we woke up, went out, went to the living room, and then and went to the front yard. And it was my dad who was there be, beating my sister. And so I could not I couldn't understand what was going on. He was At first it was just with a belt. He was just there disciplining her physically and with a belt. And then he asked to go get the bigger belt or something. My stepmother, she ran, she went to the kitchen and she actually unhooked the propane tank. She unhooked the extension cord that comes with the propane tank for cooking. And that thing has like a huge a metal buckle on it. And she brought that to my dad for him to actually use that to discipline her. And because he was so I would say he was so enraged that she went out to go see a boy, that he wasn't even paying attention that that kind of buckle, that kind of belt. It's not a belt, but it's a deadly weapon, really. And he grabbed it. He started just disciplining her with it without paying attention that that thing has like a huge. And anyway, so he continued just for a minute, and she had blood all over her arms, her legs, her back, and that was something that again was just ingrained in my head for a long time. And I was just a kid. I didn't know what to do, what not to do. And in the corner, my stepmother, she was standing there watching, giggling, laughing about it, and and she always creates scenarios similar to that, like where because she was the one who woke him up. When she came to our room to check, she woke him up. That's what I found out the next day. We found out that she was the one actually who woke him up to tell him that she snuck out. And she knew exactly what he was going to do. And she snuck out, woke him up, and exactly what happened, that's what she was expecting. And for years, my sister, she had like wound, like you can see she still has that. Like you can see still the scars of that all over her body, basically. And so that's just something that at some point after that, at some point, eventually, all of us, one by one, we just left. We left and went back to my mom eventually. But my mom was married by then. So she was married by then, and we were not getting along with my stepfather. So I went to my grandmother's house. And so at that instance, I have learned, actually, even when I was back to my dad, I remember I early by 7, 8 for sure, I knew that I will never ever want to be like her. That's why I didn't know what I wanted to be. I did not know that in life at that point. But I surely did not want to be like her. Like somebody so conniving, so evil when it comes to people, just wanted people to hurt. Like not only to hurt, but to sit down and watch them hurting and enjoying it. And enjoying seeing other people being hurt. That part, I did not want that. I did not want nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with it. In an early age, I knew that. I did not know what life, the rest of life looked like. I did not know what the rest of my life will be. I didn't know what I wanted, how I wanted to be when I grew up. But I surely did not want to be nothing like that woman. That's one thing I surely did not want to. And so after I moved, we all moved one at a time. Eventually, I was the last one to move back to my mom. But my mom, she was married, couldn't get along with my stepfather. So I went to my grandmother. My grandmother, she was my hero because into her, I have not really seen positivity. And I was around almost, I would say 12 by then. I was around there 12. I would say 10, 12 when I went to my grandmother. And my grandmother, she was a saint. She was a saint. She was the only daughter, the only girl out of 9 children. The only girl. Her parents had 9 children. All of them were boys. She was the only daughter. And God blessed her so much. She had multiple businesses. She had like people who knew her. She was just one of those people. It's not even about the actually material. It's about what she did with the material stuff that she had. It's the material wealth she had. It's not about just having it. It's about what did she do with it. The material wealth she had, my grandmother, she supported people she knew, people she didn't know, all her brothers. And she was, I think, the number 5. She had 4 younger, I would say she had 4 younger siblings. So she was like in the middle. She was like in the middle of the 9 children. But at the end of the day, she was the one that got blessed with all the material things because I believe that God knew exactly what she was going to do with it. She was not the selfish type. She was not the type to keep everything for herself. She was not the type to not help people, especially when you see people are struggling, right? She was not that type. And she was the type to try her very best to lend a hand. And she learned over time, of course, to lend a hand to only people who are deserving of it too, because it's sometimes it's not just lending a hand, it's lending a hand. Make sure you're not lending a hand to somebody who will come and bite you, bite your hand, that same hand that's feeding them or helping them. God is helping, or the whatever higher purpose you believe in or we believe in, right? That higher purpose is using her hand, was using her hand to give her so she can actually give it to whoever else needs it. But then there are some people that will actually bite that same hand, right? That the higher power is using through her to get to them. And people do it all day, every day. And that's one of the saddest reality we live in. And even back then, my grandmother lived in it. But she helped people. Like somebody will go to the hospital, they're sick. Somebody that she barely knows, but they know her sibling or they know somebody in the family somehow, some way. And then they will be like, oh, they're in the hospital, they're actually sick. They don't have the bill to pay for X, Y, Z, right? And they will come to her and be like, hey, such and such, who knows your brother? He's in the hospital, he's sick, he really cannot pay his bill. He has no insurance. Can you go ahead and help out? She will, okay, how much? How much is the bill? Okay, she'll send someone directly to the hospital to actually directly pay for the bill. Somebody will have a child they cannot afford, to feed, or they will have multiple children they cannot afford to feed their children for one reason or another reason. They lost their job, their wife was sick, whatever reason, right? Financially, she'll go ahead and be like, okay, let me lend you guys. That's what I can do. I cannot come physically and help you, but I can materialistically or financially, I can actually help. Let me go ahead and do that. And she never asked a dime back in return. She never asked a thank you. She never asked nothing in return. She just does it because she understood the concept of more you do, more you receive. And don't just do it because you want to receive more, but do it because that's what's the right thing to do. And that's what she was doing. And my grandmother does not gossip. People come and gossip to her, and she'd be like, I don't want no part of that. And she had taught me a lot. That was one of it. Gossiping about people, making sure that, hey, I'm not gonna get into nobody's business. It's none of my business, so therefore I'm not getting into it. Hey, if somebody come and ask me for help or for whatever it is, I'll go and do what I can to help. And she was the light, the sunshine in so many people's lives. So many people's lives. So many people. And I understood, and she went through her businesses, all the businesses that she had. She made sure that she employed her family members. She made sure that her brothers, who did not actually have the means or the means to get certain jobs or the qualifications to get certain jobs outside, she made sure that she provide those jobs, or even better, for them to actually have means to live decent lives, to provide their families decent lives. All of her brother, except I believe two, all of them worked with her in her businesses. All of them, like all of them work in her businesses except for two of them, and the two of them decided not to for one reason or another. So and then same with their children, and eventually their children also came and worked eventually, and it was almost like a family business. It was really a family business. She provided for everybody, and everybody who worked for her or with her, they were actually family members. They were family members. And that's one thing that I was like, wow. I was like, at the end of the day, she is not only providing for strangers or helping and assisting strangers. She's also assisting her own family members, making sure that her family members, do not go hungry, do not go homeless, do not go, without any kind of, material wealth that she had, she shared with them, right? So, and it's not just that, spiritual too, because she made sure that any spiritual beliefs or any spiritual anything that they have going on, she participates. She participated. She provided financial means for the any celebrations, any kind of spiritual or religious celebrations. She'll make sure that there's nothing that is lacking financially, to make sure that the material is there for that celebration to actually happen, right? So that's one thing that I have learned so much, and she has so much wisdom. She has so much wisdom, so much. And every time we do stuff, she was not the type to say, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and just like yell at you about what you did. But she'll tell you, come sit down, and she'll talk to you about her story. She'll talk to me or my siblings. She'll talk to us about her story and tell us about what she have learned. So she will try to teach us wisdom through her own life story and tell us. And she will always ask, so what do you think I did after that XYZ happened? What did you think I did? And then she wants you to think about it. Basically, try to put your shoe in somebody else's shoe to be able to understand where they're coming from when they make certain decisions. And for a long time, I didn't understand much. Why was she so generous to so many people? Some of them go and talk behind her back. Some of them go and just, you know, they just, I don't know. They were not thankful at all. But at the end of the day, it was not her job to understand or to know or to want them to be thankful. Her only job was to extend her hand and assist. Whatever those people decide to do, that's their business. That was their business. And therefore, she understood that. And that's another wisdom. She taught us so much, so much, so much, my siblings and I. And she was, I would say, the pillar of the entire, I would say maybe 50 people or more. Because at the end of the day, her siblings had children, their children had children, and then so on. The family expanded very much so. And she was the pillar for, I would say, 50 people or more. But at the end of then, eventually I would say by the time I was a teenager, she started getting sick. Physically, she had something going on that the doctors couldn't really, I would say they did know what it was, but I don't think it was really, it was in certain cultures, again, when somebody who's mostly the head of the household or who's responsible for so many people when they're sick, it's better they keep it under wrap. Like culturally, it becomes a taboo thing. Don't go ahead and spread that around that this person is sick and got this and got that. Because if you go and tell everybody about it, then it becomes a panic thing. People would not know what to do. So therefore, just don't say nothing. And some, unfortunately, people don't even try to go get help for it because whoever they go get help from might just go ahead and tell. And if they tell somebody who cannot really close their mouths, they'll go ahead and tell somebody too. Before you know it, that one person who's actually a caregiver or who's the healthcare provider has already told somebody they have no business telling to. Next thing you know, it's spread in the entire town, right? Or the entire city or the entire community. So therefore, it was kind of taboo for people to want to actually tell their health status, even when they know if it's bad or it's actually curable or non or uncurable. It doesn't matter. People just don't tell, or they did not tell at the time, and that was my grandmother's case. And by a certain age, few years later, by the time I was actually married and I had my first child, I would say, yeah, I had by the time I had my second child, she was she was bedridden and she couldn't really get out of bed. She couldn't do much, and she had to be taken care of in bed. And unfortunately, her entire body gave up on her. And the same people she was taking care of, the same people she was providing, who worked in her businesses, the same people were stealing from her, were stealing money, material. They were stealing things from those same businesses that she had, and she entrusted them to actually run. She'll pick one person in each business and be like one family member and be like, okay, I'll go ahead and let you take care of this specific business and be the one who manages it for me and come and tell me about what's going on and so forth and so on. But unfortunately, the same people she actually entrusted, the same family members she entrusted to take care of those businesses for her while she was debilitating physically to be able to manage those businesses. And she was at home in bed. Those same people stole from her, lied to her, took, stole, lied, did whatever they could to actually benefit themselves. And by the time she passed away, she had almost all her businesses had failed. All her businesses, she was pretty much bankrupt. So that's just a great example, unfortunately, of, and when I found out about that, because I was not, by then I already moved away. I already had my own household, family to manage and all that stuff. So when I found out about what was happening to her, I was so heartbroken. And the part that broke my heart the most wasn't even the fact that she was actually, of course, she was sick for a couple of years. So it was just unfortunately a matter of time that she'll pass, because that's just part of the life cycle. We born, we grow up, we get old, and we pass on, right? That's just part of it. But the part that actually hurt me the most was the fact that those same people she entrusted, those same people she assisted, those same people who did not go hungry, did not go homeless because of God, because of her, right? Or thanks to God, thanks to her, I should say. Those same people were the ones who plotted, who cheated, who backstabbed her, right? While she was in her lowest. That's the part that actually broke my heart the most. But then again, I had to look back when I found out about it. I had to look back I had to look back myself and see that her situation was not the only situation I've seen in my family. I've seen similar situations with my mom, and I've seen similar situations with other people in my family, but hers was the ultimate. because of the amount of people she actually assisted and helped and been there for, right? But then the closest to her were the ones actually doing that to her. And that's the part that broke my heart the most. And so by the time she passed away again, not only her businesses have failed basically, even her the house she lived in, things were stolen, like pots and pans and name it. If it looked good, it's gone. So that's just the saddest part, the saddest part about stuff. The saddest part. But then and then I look back just paying attention to that part, but she was the change, the biggest, I will say my hero, I will say my inspiration growing up. She was the person that inspired me to be better, to want better, to do better, to extend and be there for people and be good and be kind and just not want to give up on life, because she had a hard life. She had a tough life. A tough life. Just being the only girl amongst nine children, eight boys, and the only girl, that alone, I think, is tough, right? But the rest of it, right? The rest of it is that she didn't just obtain that wealth just by laying down, right? She worked for it. She worked hard for it. She worked very hard for years and years and years and years. And she was very business savvy. Otherwise, she wouldn't just have those businesses, like that, right? And so looking at her life had helped me a lot in life to grow and do better. Every time, so that was my growing up, that was kind of my reference point. The fact that I never wanted to be like my stepmother, I could never take her as a reference point, as a person to model. I could never do that because I never wanted to be like her. And I always understood that growing up. So when I had the chance and the opportunity to stay with my grandmother, I took and internalized, in a good way, everything she taught me. And I made sure I used that as my standard, as a stepping stone, as a model, as whatever I do in life. I got to make sure that I do it in place of love. I do it in a place of, I'm not expecting nothing from you. I'm just doing because it's the right thing to do. And I am doing it because I do not want to, because karma is real. The law of the universe is very real. Whatever you give out there, you get it back. You are bad to people, then bad gonna find you. Bad will definitely find you. So we don't need to do none of the extra things. Just be us. Just be good. Just do what we're supposed to do for each other, helping each other, assisting each other, be there for each other. That's all it is, right? And then it's a big circle of positivity. Things go and circle around and come back positive. You give positive, it circles around, it comes back positive. But that's just that. So she has been always my inspiration. My inspiration to understand that there's a choice. There has always been a choice. There's always been a choice for us to choose to do good or to do bad. Because again, I have seen it with my stepmother. She had her own child and she had us. She was to be that model for us. She was supposed to be that person who shows us that there is good, that you can be taken care of even by somebody who's not your mother, biological mother, that we could have been taken care of. We could have been nurtured. We could have been assisted the way a child should have been given. But she did not decide to do that. She decided to go the other way. So we couldn't even say growing up, oh, she just didn't know better, because we saw her taking care of her child way better than us. So therefore, we understood at early age that it's not that she doesn't know better. She did not want to do better with us. She selected to be mean to us. She selected to be conniving to us. She selected. It was a choice. It was a pure choice. She wanted to be that person who leaves a bad taste in our mouths, who made sure that we grew up thinking that the world is nothing but dark. The world is nothing but blackness, negativity, uh, no assistance, no nothing positive. That's what she wanted, unfortunately. And there are people like that. There are plenty of people like that. They pick and choose where they want to do good. They pick and choose where they want to assist. They pick and choose who they want to assist without understanding that actually God or the whatever higher power we believe in is the one that assists, is the one that provides, is the one that does any and everything. The ultimate plan is that higher power. It's not us. A higher power goes through us to get to whoever needs that assistance or that help or that nurturing, right? But it's not us. But again, we pick and choose actually if we want to extend what the higher power is trying to get through to that person. We pick and choose that. There's a will thing here. It's our will to want to do good or not good. It's our will. So I never tell so when I talk about trauma, I always say that sometimes it's unconscious. Absolutely, there are certain things that are unconscious. We're not even paying attention that we're doing them, but we are. But ultimately, if we keep repeating the same thing over and over and we keep seeing the other person is hurt, the other person is crying over it, the other person, that action we are taking is actually putting the other person in a negative sense, is impacting the other person negatively, but we still continue doing it repeatedly. That means we understand the impact. But our will and our decision is to still continue to do that negative thing to that person. So at the end of the day, there is a choice. There is absolutely a choice, subconscious or not. We can do it subconsciously maybe once, maybe twice, and not see the impact. But if we see the impact, we see that it's affecting them, right? We see it, but we still keep on doing it. We still keep on doing it. And we feel a sense of gratification, a sense of accomplishment by keep doing it. Then we are choosing to do it consciously. We are choosing to do it. It's not subconscious anymore. So that's just, again, something that I have learned through my stepmother, through her actions. And again, I learned that later on, that through after it's like living a dark room and then stepping into a stage that has plenty of lights, that has so many lights, right? So we end up being actually blinded by that light because we didn't even know the light existed, because we were in such a dark room that our eyes have adapted to that darkness a little bit. But in my case, for sure, in all of us, we all decided that as children, that there is one thing we do not want to be, is actually like that, like that person. So, and there are so many things that, again, I can say about what happened to us in childhood, but I'm not going to say because of YouTube, because of YouTube, right? But I will say one more thing and then I'll move on. One more thing that just coming back actually is coming in mind is something that I have never understood the reason of doing it, right? It's like in the morning when we used to go to school in the morning, she would come. By the time we wake up, actually, my father was already gone to work. He was already gone. And because he had meetings in the morning, he had briefings and stuff like that. He had to get together and all that. So he will leave, and then she'll be the one waking us up. And she did not want to come and put her hand on us, on just to say, "Hey, wake up." just to go ahead and rub your leg or to touch your leg, our leg, or just, hey, back or shoulder or whatever, to be like, hey, wake up. She didn't even want to open her mouth to say wake up. What she did was every night she would get ice tray, those little ice trays, ice cube trays. She'll fill it up with water. She'll put it in the freezer. And then by early morning, they halfway frozen. There's a little bit of water in there, but really it's almost water that's almost ice. Or you see the little crystals already in that water, right? So she will come, she will just grab it, she will come, and then she will spill it on us. So she'll be like, nope, I will not talk to you to even wake up. I will not even, da da da. I will just spill some icy water on you to wake you up. That's again one thing she did. And she'll make sure she made that a regular thing. For years, she did that, a regular thing to put trays. And she made it her job to go buy actually multiple trays of ice to put them in the fridge every day. Every day, she'll fill them up, she'll put them in the fridge, and she'll come and she'll spill it on us in the morning to be like, no, I'm not touching you. I will not talk to you to wake you up. I will just wake you up with ice trays. And I could never understand it. I still cannot understand it because the effort alone to go every night to fill it up is way more effort than just to call somebody's name to wake them up. So, but she enjoys seeing us screaming to wake up with that cold water. And then, now you wet, now of course you have to, no matter what, have to go take a shower anyway. But still, it's that, hey, I see them, getting out of their bed, screaming every morning, pretty much. Or, so that's just one thing amongst many things, right? So, move forward again. I'll go ahead and move forward. Teenager years, young adulthood, and I would say I had a couple of relationships, well, one or two relationships with, again, emotional abusers. So my entire life, unfortunately, I have came across emotional abusers, almost like an emotional abuser magnet, right? At early age, and I had nothing to do with that part, but it still happened. So didn't have a choice; it still happened. Um, and so I'll say early 20s, I would say teenage years, high school, and early 20s, I had two very abusive relationships, right? My the one in my 20s, early 20s, that was physically abusive and all that. And I had to actually just leave in the middle of the night. I just left, packed my things, left, right? And so we at some point we lived together, and so that's a story that I will not expand on. But the biggest one, the one has had, I would say, one of the longest ones that I had sustained is a marriage, that was a marriage with a covert narcissist. I did not know, again, at that time, what actually a narcissist was even. So that's just the biggest thing. Not knowing, that's why they always say knowledge is power. If you know, you know. If you don't, you just don't know. And then if you don't know, that's when things can get you, right? And it started mid 20s. I would not say actually mid 20s, a little bit later. But the marriage was, I would not say in the beginning it was actually decent. I would say the first year, maybe second, right? That's the whole point. It's covert, right? So therefore, you would not know, you would not see the signs. It takes a minute for you to know, to see the signs. And even when you see the signs, the gaslighting, the manipulation, you start thinking, maybe it's just me making up things. Oh, no, it's not me. Oh, no, it's, this or that. So it's the whole point is with any narcissistic relationship is for the person who's being abused to actually doubt themselves to everything that happens. That's the whole point of the manipulation. It's for you not to make you unsee what you see, right? Even when you're the one of the even if you're the smartest people out there, even if you're the most discerning people out there, even if your intuition is on point, even if you have experience with abusive people, there are so many different type of narcissists or narcissism or abusers, period, that every one of them have their own kind of technique, right? They have their own little techniques that is different than the previous one. And then they have their own way of also switching from techniques to techniques. Once they see that you're catching up, they will switch it and be like, okay, let me switch it now. She's catching up now. She cannot catch up. Let me switch it, right? It's almost like you playing a game that you did not sign up to be part of. And you don't even know you're in a game. You don't even know you're in a game. So therefore, there's always this game of, let me make sure she doesn't know what's going on so she can stay stuck, right? So that's what I had to go through. And it has always been also being able to emotionally withhold. Oh, you acting like that, stuff like that. I'm just not into, people who do stuff like that. Or, and kind of just making you kind of doubt who you are. Like, oh, I'm doing that. Am I doing that? Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, he doesn't like that. Well, let me go ahead and change that. And then unfortunately, by the end of, actually, it doesn't even need to be at the end. By couple, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I had to sit down and think about it. I'm like, being in this relationship, I don't know who I am. I don't like this person that I'm becoming. But then I couldn't really pinpoint what it was. I couldn't. I could not pinpoint what it was. I knew that things were rocky, but I was like, well, and then I read certain books. Certain books tell you, well, sometimes it takes up to 5 years for actually marriage to stabilize, or 6 years or 7 years. And then I start realizing by year 10, I was like, okay, nah, this is not stabilizing. This is going downhill. It's going down the hill. By year 10, I already had my daughter. And that specific example, there are so many other examples I could give about the manipulation, the gaslighting, the emotional abuse, the the isolation, right? Because so I can give so many, but I'll go ahead and just give a couple because of, again, time purposes. When I had my daughter, I was pregnant with my daughter. It was very traumatic. Very traumatic, not in the sense that actually being pregnant, it's more like that side of the person I was married to, the side I've seen, that side, that part. Because at first, this person did not want so-called another child. But then again, it takes two, right? It takes two to have a child. That's just that part. And that's, again, another thing I learned later on, that narcissists in general, they do not want older children. They do not want children. In general, they don't. They do not like children, not even their own, because they see children as a competition. They see children as people who are here to take their space, time, energy, right? Because on that sense, if you have a child, then you're giving all that attention, that validation, to that child. You're not giving them nothing. And therefore, they would not have enough, you would not give them enough time to actually feed off you. right? So therefore, that child becomes priority. That part I did not know until I had my second child, the second child. That's when I understood. Actually, when I got pregnant, I would say that was one of the most stressful times of my life, maybe, right? It was one off because I was very physically, physiologically, right? Because pregnancy is almost like a cancer, unfortunately. I hate kind of putting it, I do not like putting it in that category, but it's kind of almost like a cancer. You don't have control over your body. You have this older human being that's growing inside of the body that needs so much energy from you, that needs nutrients, that needs oxygen, that needs time, that needs energy, that needs any and everything, right? And then you don't have too much control over your body. You gain weight. Now, I love my children. That's absolutely, I lived for my children. And I still live for them up to a certain extent. So, up to a certain extent. But I've surely understood that that at that point, that's when I started understanding certain things when it comes to narcissism, covert narcissism specifically. The fact that I did not have the emotional support, I did not have I had so much stress on me, and I still actually had to work full time. I was working full time. I was going to school full time to get my degree. And then I was also pregnant. Actually, I was working nights for half of my pregnancy. I was working nighttime, and then I switched to daytime because it was so taxing on my body. So I had to switch daytime, and I was going to school full time, and I still had a household to take care of, and I didn't have no help when it comes to anything. I had to be the one doing everything pretty much. And when I ask for assistance, it's more like, oh, you wanted it, deal with it. You wanted it, deal with it. Very verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, withholding emotional affection. Name it, you know. The only thing I will say that did not happen was just the physical abuse. But again, there are so many studies that show that physical abuse is actually something that is less likely for us to even remember the physical abuse itself. It's more like the emotional trauma that comes with the physical abuse that we remember the most. That's what's detrimental to us. It's not even the the action of hit someone. It's not even that action itself. It's more like the emotional side of it that actually is bad. That's the side that actually makes people have PTSD because it's linked to an emotional trauma to it, right? So again, that's the physical. I would say the physical abuse is the only one I didn't understand, and I was pregnant again. I had by the end of my pregnancy, I had some health issues. I had so many things. I had to drive myself to my own doctor's appointments. Not even the physical help, like physically helping. Hey, go ahead and sit down, put your feet up, and I will help you. I will take care of certain things. Or you going to a doctor's appointment, let me take a day off, let me go ahead and take you. One doctor appointment, this person did not come to. One doctor's appointment, he did not show up. And every doctor's appointment I had, I let that person know that, hey, I had doctor's appointment. Do you want to come? No, I'm not coming. I'm not coming. I'm like, okay. And I kept on going. And I never tried to, hey, hold any grudge or anything. I'm just like, hey, my actions are mine. Your actions are yours. At the end of the day, we all are going to reap what we sow. That's how life works. We all going to reap what we sow. And that has always been my philosophy. Just because you do something does not mean that I have to lower my standards, lower myself to that level to do it back. I don't do that. And I hope that everybody else get to that point where they actually do it or see it that way. Because there will be less people out there hurting people just for no reason. You know. So that part was something that for me, it just stuck to me. I could never just understand, like, when I was physically, emotionally, mentally in one of the lowest points, because pregnancy does bring us to that level because our immune system is low, almost like cancer, like the same way that cancer, unfortunately, it affects our body, right? That's pretty much the same effect almost pregnancy has on us. So therefore, and if we were not married, I think I would be like, oh well, I understand. This person is not my spouse, so they don't have to. But we were married, living in the same household. So what was the reason for that? Now again, fast forward a few years later, right? That one thing specifically, out of everything else, was the one that I could never just brush off. I could never, I forgave, I moved on, everything. It was hurtful. But again, the understanding part of it is what I couldn't understand. Because at that point, I didn't actually understand or know or discover that this person was a covert narcissist. And therefore, a lot of the things that come with it, even early in the pregnancy, I have even early marriage, I did not see those things because I didn't know again what a narcissist was to begin with. So therefore, I wouldn't know. But that one thing stuck to me, and that's what actually made me later on start researching on what why will someone do this to their own spouse? And that's when I discovered a lot. And again, fast forward years later, I would say maybe years later, that's when I actually did some research. Actually, I came back on the same conversation. I asked this person the same thing again. I asked this person the same thing. And I was like, so what was the reason for that? And this person responded back to me telling me, and I even asked her, I was like, so have you ever just sat down and rewind time to actually just see your behavior, to see if it was appropriate, to see, you know, to see, just to tell yourself, was that okay? Or if it's okay, so hey, there's nothing I can do about that. There's nothing you can do, there's nothing I can do. So if at least it's not okay for you to be remorseful, any remorse at all. And he will say to me, oh no, I don't see nothing wrong with that. You wanted what you wanted, and I didn't want what I didn't want. So why should I act any differently? If I had to go back in time, I would do exactly the same thing again. And that part for me was, I would say, the final straw. That was the final straw for me to be like, okay, this right here. So, and then I started researching about certain things. I just kind of wrote down certain things, started researching about it. That's when I found out. I was like, oh, that makes sense. That explains the competition. That explains the lack of support. That explains, the fact that I was the one pretty much doing everything, carrying the household, like if I was a single mother, right? While this person's job required them to travel, right? They were focusing only on their career, only their promotions, only them, 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 them. And I was here sustaining a household like if I was a single mother. And I did not know, again, that was part of it. All the excuses, all the, whatever else that was going on outside of the marriage, right? That I did not know about or I didn't know about. I obviously didn't know a lot about stuff because if I did, I wouldn't stay to begin with. But again, when there is manipulation, there is gaslighting, and we don't know too much about actually those kind of and if the person, especially, it's more like subtle. It's very subtle. It's not like there's fighting about it. There's not like this. It's very subtle, it's very subtle. So therefore, you don't even see it as manipulation. You don't even see it as gaslighting. And especially when you're the kind of person who grows up in a in a I would say culture where girls, young girls, mothers are taught to be the pillar of the household in the sense that emotionally, right? If your emotionals are, if you emotionally you're not regulated, basically you're kind of almost like the thermometer of the household. If you're hot, everybody's hot. If you're cold, everybody's cold. So we were taught at early age pretty much that you're the thermometer of the household. You set the temperature. You're the thermostat. You set the temperature. You are the one who regulates those things. So when you are with a narcissist, unfortunately, you tend to do that, not even seeing it as something that is not normal. Making sure that that's the walking on eggshell part of things. You try to make sure that you do certain things certain way. You don't want them to feel upset. You don't want them, you always checking their temperature. You always, making sure that everything is good. Whatever their feelings are, your feelings have to adjust to that. Your feelings don't matter. Your feelings, your wants don't matter. Whatever is good for them, that's good for you. So that's what actually leads to self-abandonment. You abandon yourself in the detriment of the other person. You do things for the other person wants and not what you want, right? Not only self-abandonment, but also your self-worth and self-love go down because at the end of the day, you're not doing things that you love. You're doing things that they love. You abandon what you love for what they love. You do what you don't only do, you stop doing what your values and morals are telling you to do to accommodate their values and morals, right? To accommodate what they want. So that's where the walking on eggshell is not only an emotional thing, it's real all the things too. It's not just emotional. And in that marriage, it definitely, you know, it did happen for many years. And again, culture and unfortunately being more prone to staying in an abusive narcissistic relationship have sometimes a lot to do with it, right? It has a big correlation. And in my case specifically, I have seen it. And so it's very much a something that we need to be mindful of. Sometimes it's not that some people are just too naive or too weak or not understanding or just too traumatized, right? Trauma has a lot to do with who we attract, but also the way we raise, the values and morals that are actually imposed upon us have something to do with what we attract. And not only what we attract, but what we view to be normal, what we view to be okay to stay in, especially when it comes to relationships, platonic, romantic, or not, right? So that's a big, big, big realization. That was a big realization for me after I did my research, after I've seen those things. And I was like, okay. And then now, and I started seeing, and also not only during my pregnancy, I was having health issues. I started having health issues early age in my marriage, like by year 7, 8. I was having already like all kind of health issues. And some of those health issues, the doctors could not even explain it. They run so many tests. So it's not only taxing on your mental, it's taxing on your physical too. Because again, I was having the rash, I was having these rashes that I could not explain. They were moving. One day I will have it on my arm, the next day I will have it on it's like hives, but it's not really hives. It's not, I did allergy testing, I did autoimmune testing, endocrine testing, name it. I have done it. They would not figure it out. I ended up actually having again a clot in my leg, DVT, right? The DVT was mainly mental, it was linked to stress. And, so I had all the health issues linked with that. And I had to exit. After I exit that marriage, literally within maybe 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, all of those things pretty much were gone. All of them were gone. Pretty much all of them were gone. So this is just, again, I'm sharing this story with an audience. This is my personal life. I'm not sharing it for likes. I'm not sharing it for subscribers. I'm sharing it for awareness. That's all I'm sharing it for. Awareness. Because if I was aware, I would not stay in that marriage for over 10 years. Not even over 5 years. Because that certain type of relationships are there to build you. Certain type of relationships are there to destroy you. And no one in their right mind, with awareness, with knowledge about what will destroy them, will lead themselves and bring themselves in a relationship that will destroy them with certainty. No one will do that. So, therefore, this is purely for awareness, for knowing that, hey, and that's also the reason I'm actually putting this content. All the other videos I have is for people to be aware. And I have known so far, I have at least 6 friends who have been through similar things than me. Some have been over 20 years in a marriage and they just realizing their situations. Some have been 10 years, some have been below 10 years, they just realized it early enough, they exited. Some around the same time as me. It's saddening to know that so many people are going through it, but without awareness of actually what is it. It shouldn't be that hard. A relationship should not be that hard. A relationship should not be taxing on your body, on your mental health, on your awareness, on your ambitions, on your day-to-day life, on your even the relationship with other people, right? It impacts everything, everywhere. It impacts every level of your life. It impacted every level of my life. The only thing I would say it did not impact was actually my education. Because the only reason it did not impact my education was I always loved school. I always loved learning. That was one thing that person have tried to tell me. Oh, you've been going to school forever. Why don't you just stop school and go find a job? And I was like, well, I'm working. I was working part-time and I had a little business thing on the side that I was doing on the weekend. And then I was going to school full-time. That's one thing I refuse for anyone to strip me from. And I remember telling that person, if you are going to try to control my education, what I can do or what I cannot do when it comes to knowledge and school, I am leaving. I am not compromising that for nobody. And that was one boundary. I didn't know I was setting actually a boundary, but that was a boundary. I did not know that at the time, but I am glad I did it. Because that right there is one thing that kept me staying sane, kept me balanced, kept me going, kept me seeing, a better life in the horizon. Even though I didn't know at the time that marriage was going to be over with. I didn't know. But I knew that my financial independence was very, very much a big deal for me. And I could get it through my education. Now, I'm not saying education, going to school is for everybody, right? I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, in my case specifically, that was what saved me. Saved me in many different ways that I couldn't even realize at the time that I was actually doing it. I did not realize it until later on that I realized, oh wow, my schooling actually, all the time I was spending in my little room, the little room that I have preserved and organized for my education, my schooling and all that stuff. And all the time I spent reading things and all that, researching, getting my degrees. That was a lifesaver for me. That was something that actually I did not realize how much of stress it took off me from that marriage, that narcissistic abuse. I did not realize it until later on. That was my outlet. Some people, I used to go to the gym too. I still go to the gym, but the gym was not really an outlet for me because I still go and work out and come back tired. And I have to go and take a nap after that. But the schooling was the main thing for me. So narcissistic abuse, I will go ahead and do a whole many different videos on narcissistic abuse because this is just an overall my story, what I went through. I will not give too many details on that The only details that I have get was something that for me personally, yeah, was just that. All right. I hope that this video helps you, and I hope that the information I am providing on this video gives you some awareness if you're in a similar situation. If you're not, that's a great thing. And if you are, I hope that you find a solution for your situation soon enough. Okay, this is part one. I'll do part two. So make sure you watch the part two, because again, so that you can have a little bit more awareness of all the situations, because again, we have many situations in a lifetime. Depending on what situation you're in, you might be able to relate. If not, that's okay too. And because I don't wish no one to go through certain situations. I don't. All right. Until next video then, please take care.